You're listening to Garibaldi Red, a Nottingham Forest podcast brought to you by Nottinghamshire Live. Hello and welcome to episode 4 of Garibaldi Red, the Nottingham Forest podcast from Nottinghamshire Live. And this week I'm joined by a Forest fan, Michael Temple, who is also the commercial director of Trent Bridge Cricket Ground. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. Got the title right. Delighted for the invite. Just trying to work out who turned you down for me to get this this chance to talk to you today.
There was a list. No, it wasn't really. I'm very grateful for you coming in to join us on the back of... we call it an upset win when you consider Forest's record against Cardiff. I think they lost 9 out of 10. So going into that game, it was a hell of a result to win 1-0 last night, wasn't it?
No, I wouldn't call it an upset game because of Forest's form on the road this year and Forest's form against the top half of the table. I think the way they set up works well on the road, comfortable not having the ball, comfortable counter-attacking, and knowing that attacking threat, particularly in my view of Lolly and Grabban. Last night it was Silver that chipped in. We just seem very well set up to win away, and so it's proven the case. Just got to back that up now with home games against teams lower in the table. But yeah, thoroughly enjoyed watching it last night. So
you saw it coming then, you weren't worried? I must admit I was getting a bit twitchy this time of the season with a couple of recent results where they probably should have won games and didn't. You were pretty confident going into last night's game.
Yeah, you hear that, right? You hear people attaching a lot of value to how a team has done against particular opposition 10 years ago. I don't think Thiago Silva has watched or been involved in any of those games, or if he has any influence whatsoever on that game. I was pleased to see Tomlin not involved. Big fan of him when he was at Forest. They seemed a little bit blunt, and people like Benny Watson came to the fore. And if he's not one of the most rounded centre mids in the Championship, then I don't know what is. I thought he was excellent last night defensively, and the way he kind of plays that almost quarterback role, getting the attacks going. But yeah, that was nigh on a complete away performance for me last night, and on the right side of it.
So I assume that you, like everyone else, had written Ben Watson off before a ball was kicked this season, or not?
He's sat in the under-23s.
Yeah.
For a player of that calibre, and you kind of look at what he's become to Forest. I think the comment was last night that Sabri considers him to be the brains of the team. You see that. He's a streetwise footballer, very efficient. He's not flashy. He's not going to beat 3 lads and lash it in the top bag, but just those simple passes, finding the fullbacks, being calm on the ball, and the way he broke up play last night as well. I think he had the right to feel very hard done to, rotting in the 23s.
Yeah.
And credit to Sabri, Jadot, for recognising his qualities and making him such an important part of this side. And yeah, what a call.
And Grabban didn't score, but he did have he had a great game. How impressed have you been with him? And can Forest get promoted if without him? If he does pick up an injury, do you think?
Certainly twice the side with him in the team.
Yeah.
A lot of call from Forest fans pre-season about an extra striker. What are we going to do if Grabban misses a game? We're not the same side when he misses a game, but I don't think he needs to miss a game. He ran so much for the team last night, in behind, and the vision for that cross to Thiago Silva, which I think he meant, by the way. I think it wasn't just a lash across the box. He picked up on that run. But yeah, so much made about a striker not scoring goals. But his influence to the team, and he will score goals. He will score goals. His record in the Championship is incredible. And yeah, he was a 9 for me last night, a 9 out of 10 for me last night. I thought he played incredibly well, so efficient, doesn't get the ball loads, but his influence on the game, his chance conversion, will forgive the obvious howler a couple of weeks ago. He's a really good Championship player.
Is he a better all-round footballer under Lamucci than we saw under Karanka, do you think, or not?
He's happier, isn't he? He's happier.
Seems it, yeah.
Because he's guaranteed his place in the side. He's hacked around a few clubs. We all saw his cameo in the Sunderland documentary. But I think his unease at other clubs has come from not having that love. He's one of the players that, and we see it in all sports, he needs to feel the love. And if he knows that he's the man, he's in that team week in, week out, he can have a run of games without scoring, and he's still going to be in that team week in, week out. You'll get the best out of him. And Forest is seeing the best of Lewis Grabban at the moment.
And they did it without Samba Sow. I think the win rate without him is 22%, or a bit higher now. But when he's in the side, they look a lot better team. So to do it without Samba Sow makes it an even more impressive result, do you think?
Yeah, well, Ben Watson was Samba Sow last night, wasn't he?
Yeah.
I think everyone thought that Yatesy would plug in and be that ball-winning, defensive centre mid. And as it happened last night, he didn't need to be because Ben Watson was 10 clicks ahead of anybody else. But massive fan of Samba Sao. But I didn't think we missed him as much last night. Don't get me wrong. If he's fit, available, get him back in that team. But keep Benny Watson in there as well.
So who was the best summer signing? The Samba Sao, Bryce Samba, Thiago Silva? Which one would you say was the most impressive?
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. I think the player who's had more influence this year than any previous year was Matty Cash, and that conversion to right back has really paid off. So much confidence in Bryce Samba.
Yeah.
You don't think anything's going to bounce off him.
No,
I just think he's a great communicator. He distributes the ball like a central midfielder. Like a central midfielder. Just, picking players out from 40, 50 yards. So I think his value is incredible. Thiago Silva, I thought he was a tenacious tackling midfielder when he first arrived. He kind of slotted into that 10 role last night, arrived late for the goal. The record, the influence of Samba So on the win ratio is incredible too. So why pick one? I think they're all really, really good signings. And shame on Forest fans and myself included in thinking that just because you have to Google the name of a footballer or a manager when he arrives, they're not as high a value as someone like Bentner rocks up. Yeah, and people get excited because they've seen a few clips of him at his best. They've picked players from obscure European leagues there, and they've proved very well equipped at championship level. So credit to the backroom team at Forest who've picked some real winners there.
I've played football with you, and I think you can clear the first man with a corner. I don't think Thiago Silva can. That's my one gripe with him. Is that a fair comment? Do you think I don't know why he's taking set pieces, because his open play is fantastic. Am I being a bit harsh on him there from his dead ball delivery?
Of course you should clear the first man with a corner, but look, let's celebrate what's good about Thiago Silva. He can still put a tackle in. A couple of stray passes last night, but in general he was on it. I mean, Forest fans are notoriously fickle, I suppose, and we tend to have this like anger when our team is losing and delight when they win. But there are a lot of subtleties, and football and sport in general are far more complex than that. And I wish we'd just accept that lads are going to have upturns, downturns in form. But generally speaking, over the course of the season, I think the sum of Forest parts is a really, really good side. There's third in the Championship, in the mix for automatic promotion. Certainly, in my view, very strong contenders in the playoffs. So let's enjoy this moment, because it's been a long time coming.
So if I give you the four scenarios as they probably stand, and you got to pick one for me, automatic promotion via the playoffs, losing the playoffs again, or don't even make the playoffs. As we sit here today, which one of those four do you think is going to happen?
I think we'll be in the playoffs. I think predicting the playoffs as a Forest fan wouldn't be a very enjoyable thing to do. I've got horrible memories of Sheffield United away.
Oh God!
I lived in Sheffield at the time, and the only ticket I could get was in the Sheffield United end, and life was beautiful after that first leg and the start of that game. And then Desi Walker nods one in his own net, and Sheffield United fans are rubbing my hair in the lava stand. Not fun. Blackpool, Swansea, Yeovil.
Oh God,
So I think we are a playoff team, a really good playoff team. If I had a choice, automatic promotion all the way. All that talk about the playoffs being the best way to go up, worst way to stay down.
Oh God,
let's finish second.
Yeah, I hate the playoffs. We're awful in them. But when you look at this team, because I think Forest's weakness is against teams that sit in and Forest can't break them down, or if they go behind, they really can't break them down. Perhaps in the playoffs, when teams tend to come at you, Forest, you think it might be set up, if it does come down to a showdown, that this team might actually be quite well set up for it?
Yeah, it's always a cagey first leg, isn't it? Always a cagey first leg, and then someone's chasing a game in that second leg with so much on it. So I think this team is better equipped than a Billy Davies team was. In knockout football. And frankly, I just think it's a better side. I think there's better balance to the side. I think we could all name our favourite 11 with very little debate at the minute. And you just hope we've got our best players available in this shake-up. If the season goes to the end of May and we find ourselves in the playoffs, let's get behind these boys. But so much football to play. And I still think every chance of nicking that second spot. Leeds are leaving the door open for us. We need to put a run together. We've seen some results, probably in both directions, that we didn't expect this year. No one gave us a prayer yesterday. But then, other games, Luton, one or two others, have been extremely frustrating. So, let's gun for number 2.
You think number 1? You think West Brom are going to finish top? Is there any question?
I think so. I think they've just got a depth, haven't they? And a ruthlessness and a nastiness that is the hallmark of a team that wins the championship. And I'm sure you've talked about Keith Stroud to death in your writing and on previous podcasts, but that is what's required. It's not enough to be a flair team. I think in the championship it's very important to be a physical team, but they do have that ruthless, nasty streak and good players. So I do predict that West Brom will win the championship this year.
What was your indoctrination as a Forest fan then? Because we're the same age pretty much, I think.
21.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I was kind of a child of the that late 80s, early 90s. I think my first Forest memories, the FA Cup semi-final against West Ham, which made me a Forest fan, and then the final obviously quite as well. Was that at the time you became a Forest fan, that era?
My old man was a Notts County fan.
Okay.
First game was at Meadow Lane. Looking back at the team sheet, as I have since then, Sheringham and Keane played. I think Forest won 1-0. And just, that was the moment. I don't think that was the plan my dad had for me. But watched Forest ever since. Had season ticket in the kind of Harewood, Johnson, Huckabee era, which ended at Bramall Lane, as we just discussed. But you can't change your football team. And the amount of friends I've got that live in Arnold, Hucknall, West Bridgford and support Man U, Man City and Liverpool, I find that quite sad actually. And breaks my heart to see kids now running around the streets in those, in the kits of those teams. We're from Nottingham. We should support Notts County, Nottingham Forest, get behind our side, watch the team, buy the kit. And for me, I've through thick and thin, and good times have been hard to come by as a Forest fan of my age. The European Cup final is a YouTube clip, and I've got no memory of this. But when they finished third in the Prem with Stan Collymore and Brian Roy, when we went to these playoff games, these playoff semi-finals at the City Ground, it meant so much, and being in the Premier League would mean so much. But I'll never change allegiance, and I think if my dad had his time again, he'd probably take me to Notts County v Coventry first, and treat me to my first shirt.
Which Forest team do you most identify with then? I suppose for me it's the Paul Hart team, and that playoff team. Is that the one that you kind of feel you think of first when you think of Forest as a personal in memory? Michael
Dawson, first time around, I think, being a Trent End season ticket holder, and Des Walker coming back and having that 2 minutes for a game where he'd lift his fist the Trent End and we'd all sing back at him. That was the season I probably enjoyed more than any other. Marlon was at his best. David Johnson had clicked back into form, and then Darren Huckabee came through on loan. I remember the Gillingham away game where he just picked the ball up from kickoff and it's like a FIFA goal, dribbled through 5 or 6 players and stuck it in the corner. And I think that was a real watershed for Forest. If they had got up that season, Paul Hart had a real good core of players together. He had kids that had come through the academy that he'd nurtured that were doing really well and were so loyal to him. He had some good signings, some real good calls made. And I think that was a watershed for Forest. If they'd have got back in the Premier League at that time, who knows what might have been. And there've been some dark times since then. But hopefully we're turning the corner.
So you still went in League One then? You still kept turning out?
Yeah, so I moved back to Nottingham, started work at Trembridge in 2008. So the end of that League One campaign where we promoted under Calderwood was my kind of return to Nottingham. But yes, stuck with them, obviously. But I think it would mean everything to this city if Forest were to bring Premier League football to Nottingham.
You got feeling then, do you think it will happen this summer or not?
Yeah, I do. I think it seems like there's a plan at Forest now.
Yeah.
And Fawaz was he put his money into the club, but was there really a plan?
No.
We sacked a lot of managers.
Yeah.
Did you really know what the tactics and what the signings meant? I feel now that with the off-field team at Forest, some of whom we know, really good people, you're seeing the ambition with the development. left field appointment in Sabri Lamucci, but what a call that's proved to be, and it just feels like there's a plan both on and off the pitch. So yeah, I think this is the cusp of a really positive time for Forest. And yeah, Premier League football would mean everything to this city.
So through your work at Trent Bridge, you kind of inferred a little bit of it there. You've had some dealings with the kind of Forest hierarchy, David Cook, the commercial officer, and people like that. I mean, what's your impression of the kind of off the field setup at the club? You feel it's going in the right direction after the kind of mismanagement of the Fawaz years?
Forest are in really good hands. I mean, we have really close links with them, as you say. We're 100 yards apart at Trent Bridge, and first and foremost, you've got people that really care about the club and know about football. So David Cook, great experience in the Far East and at Celtic, proper football man, knows where he's going and how to get there. Simon Fotheringham, really pleased to see him back at Forest. Super fan, gets it. He connects with the players, connects with the supporters. Really, really good fella, and Forest fans should take a lot of assurance from those people. And having sat and watched games with them, and Yanis as well, the chief exec, they watch football like we watch football.
Yeah,
they're screaming at Joe Lolly to get at the fullback. They're celebrating Kashi flying in on someone. Samba so winning the ball, a save from Bryce Samba. They really care. It really matters to them, and they watch these games in the manner that we watch these games. There's a lot of synergy between Trent Bridge and Forest, as I say, be it on a practical sense as sharing car parks and stewards and members of staff and whatever. But fundamentally, I think there's a great synergy between all the clubs, and success breeds success. Them hosting hospitality during a test match, us hosting hospitality out of the Leeds game recently. There's a real feeling of collaboration between the cricket setup in this city and Forest in particular. And I think Nicholas Randall, who's himself was a really good cricketer in his youth and comes to watch quite a few games at our place, is a great orator and advocate for that club. And their standing in the city away from football has taken a sharp upturn in the last year, 18 months, and long may that continue. But this is by far, I think, the best setup Forest have had in a long time. And if effort deserves success, then Forest will do very well over the next 3 or 4 years.
We see cricketers as frustrated footballers in the warm-up, and not very good footballers in the warm-up a lot of the time. But also footballers, some of the Forest lads, they love their cricket, don't they? They come and net, they come and watch. That's fair to say, isn't it? Yeah,
we were talking before, actually. So one of my favourite phone calls of last year was Michael Dawson ringing up to say cheers for the ticket. So I think we'd randomly sent 30 people across the city a ticket for a T20 game, and of all those people, Michael Dawson was the one that sought out a phone number, made the call, and said cheers. I was I suppose a bit blasé around cricket all the time, but having a random call from the Forest captain meant a lot to me at the time. So always great to welcome the boys to Trent Bridge. Joe Worrell, Yatesy, Dorse, big cricket fans, and on the flip side, our boys love it over there. Broady's a big Forest fan. Luke Fletcher took little Freddie Fletcher to his first Forest game of the weekend. So I think we both enjoy each other's success. And
Stuart Pearce came in. Was that Mick Newell got him in to do some kind of motivational talk? I remember that at the time.
Stuart Pearce came in to speak to the cricketers because we'd reached the quarterfinals of the cup,
where you always lose,
where we'd struggled in previous years, and we're playing Derbyshire. And I think Mick felt there was a bit of overconfidence amongst the boys, and he wanted a means of making sure they knew how important this game was. So we sat down and discussed who a good motivational speaker might be, and Stuart Pearce was Forest manager at the time. So via Ben White, the media manager at Forest, we managed to get hold of Stuart Pearce's number, gave him a shout, and asked him if he would come in and do a motivational speech to the cricketers. He jumped at it, and my one request to Mick Newell, having arranged this for him, was, look, can I stick a tracksuit on and sit at the back, have a listen? And Stuart Pearce walked in, and the lads didn't know he was coming, walked in, and we've probably got 15 English lads, of which 7 are massive Forest fans, a couple of South Africans and an Aussie who'd never heard of him. But the effect of Stuart Pearce walking in that room in his Forest togs on Luke Fletcher and the like was just incredible. They really couldn't believe what was happening. It was big news for them. And his speech was all about how he himself perhaps wasn't the best player technically, but he knew that he trained harder, that he ate better, that he slept at the right time and did everything he could to be the best of himself, and how friends of his that were more gifted footballers hadn't made it as pros and certainly hadn't played for their country. And the message to the cricketers was, look, if you follow my lead, don't celebrate your wins too hard, always look forward, train hard, eat the right thing, you'll be better than the player that you are. Really landed. And he'd done his research. He's kind of going around the room afterwards, pulls Hales aside, like, Hales, you're one of the most explosive batsmen of your generation. You can take this game away on your own. Broady, you've done this and that for England, rapid player. You're a real leader and a star. And he came up to me and he said, son, I don't know if you're a batter or a bowler, but come this weekend, you're going to be the best batter or bowler you've ever been. I hardly touched a bat in my life, but I felt ready to play. Just an incredible motivational force.
Yeah.
And the start of that season was really positive. And I think he probably came to Trent Bridge off the back of that early season form when they were kind of
flying,
thereabouts.
weren't they? Yeah.
I think it was 2 weeks later he got the chop, and that's the nature of football. But yeah, that will always stick with me.
To win that game?
Yeah, we won the game.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we won the game, and I would advocate Stuart Pearce as one of the best motivational speakers I've ever heard, and I think that's probably one of a long line of managers who, for me, were sacked too soon.
Your favourite Forest player, was it Pearce, or was someone a bit later on, do you think? Collymore
was the first name on the shirt, and I think looking back at that 93-94 season, he was just an incredible player, massively underrated. Certainly didn't get the number of England caps that he deserved. I know he's got his demons stand, but I think a great broadcaster, articulates his opinion very well. But first and foremost, what a player he was for Forest, and who expected that charge from the Championship to doing what we did in the Premier League in that season. So yeah, he stands out for me as the one player that could score a goal from nowhere, create a chance out of nothing. Beating Man U 1-0 in a game that we were on the right side of, on top of, dominated possession. Players like that get people standing up, and yeah, he's the one that I think is the best Forest player I've seen.
Do you see anyone in the current squad who could kind of get that legendary status? I suppose Worrell's the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah, Joe's performances this year, I think in recent weeks, have been incredible. He's certainly got Premier League potential. Whispers of big bids from Burnley in the past. I was very disappointed when they saw him surplus enough to loan him to Rangers, and it's probably proved to be a good education for him. But I think he was probably ready for exposure in the Championship at that time. Hearing Milan sniffing around Matty Cash, his music to our ears. I think at Forest, a lot of potential legends have had to move on because the club haven't been in the Premier League, and you just hope that the likes of Joe Worrell, Matty Cash can fulfil their ambition at Forest, and we can play on the stage that they want to play on, because that's the reason why players like Dawson, Andy Reid, even the likes of Prutton, Gareth Williams, guys that moved on because Forest weren't in the Premier League. So yeah, Joe Worrell could be a 10-year, a decade-long captain of Forest, but I think Premier League promotions to Premier League in the next 2-3 years will be important if we're going to keep players of his calibre.
So do you see parallels with the Paul Hart team that lost in the playoffs, in the sense that it had to be that season? Do you think it has to be this season for Forest, or can they wait another year or two?
I don't know. You think about FFP and the challenges that those guys are under. I think what they have up their sleeve at the minute is João Carvalho, who probably commands a transfer fee, and in the way that we play is probably slightly more disposable than a Matty Cash or a Joe Worrell. And while personally I think he has a lot to offer, what supporters might not see behind the scenes is that difficult decision that the Forest hierarchy have to make. If they have to balance the books to hit FFP in a given year, they don't want to sell João Carvalho, but it might be the lesser of two or three evils. So I don't think there's any pressure to sell Matty Cash or Joe Worrell, because they would have done when those bids came in. But there are times when, looking at the balance of the squad, they may need to pull in a striker or a fullback or any cover for any position where an injury occurs. And for me, there's probably a slight oversupply in those creative attacking midfielders at the minute. So personally, if the books needed to be balanced, Carvalho's the one that I would move on, but it would be with a heavy heart, and not because I don't think he's got a lot to offer the club.
You just don't think he doesn't fit into the system Lamucci kind of favours? Even as a 10, you don't think he fits in?
Well, he's not being picked, is he?
No.
So it's an expensive asset to have on the bench, and he's not the first change. He's very rarely the second change. So I trust Sabry's judgment, and the judgment of Martin O'Neill perhaps as well, that for some reason they're not building a team around João Carvalho, despite the promise that he's shown, despite his track record elsewhere, despite what we've seen him do in the time he's had as a Forest player. So what is that? Are they seeing a guy that has a lot of flair, is very creative, but perhaps doesn't put in the effort defensively? I don't know, but trust the judgment of a manager who's making a lot of decisions and getting the vast majority right. And there's a reason why he's not being trusted, is probably the right word, with more minutes on a football pitch at his age, and with what he's done so far. There'll be a system somewhere that he fits into, but I don't think this system is necessarily set up for him.
So as we head into the final few minutes here, I just wanted to ask you kind of what's it like to work in a sporting city like Nottingham, considering you also worked at the Olympic Stadium. Do you kind of feel lucky that you get to work at perhaps the best cricket ground in the world? Even you've got Nottingham Forest across the road, you've got Panthers, you've got County. I mean, it's to work in a sporting city in the industry, you're pretty lucky in a sense, aren't you?
Yeah, and beyond all that, this is home for me.
Yeah.
So having worked in London, having spent some time in Yorkshire, there is no place like home. My little girl's 15 months old, so being around friends and family is a massive help there, not least with nursery fees. But yeah, I do feel really lucky to be in Nottingham, and I feel particularly lucky to be at Trent Bridge, where, despite Championship relegation last year, we go into every competition thinking we've got a chance of winning it. There's a great atmosphere there. We've got a really good record of staging big matches. There's a record of profitability as well, which is no easy thing in the sporting world. Had a great time in London. Love the Olympic Stadium and everything that came with it. But this is home for me, and hopefully for a long time now I'll be ensconced in Nottingham.
It's not your fault that West Ham got a good deal then, is it? For the Olympic Stadium.
No,
don't put it on you.
No, so look, I learned a lot in that period of time about a multi-use stadium and the things that you have to do to make a venue of that scale tick. So my role going in there after the deals had already been struck with West Ham and UK Athletics was to service those contracts and stage those events, but also to find additional content for that stadium. So we had a good run, brought in some big concerts, Jay-Z, Beyonce, Rolling Stones, AC/DC, some serious big hitters in that venue, but it was a real challenge. And I think with the intrigue that goes with having accepted taxpayers' cash to build that stadium, there was a lot of external noise and a lot of things that we couldn't control. But as a group of stadium operators trying to do the best we could with the opportunity that we had there, with an incredible venue that I don't think gets enough love. I think in 10 years' time, the Olympic Stadium will be reflected on as the O2 is now. It's quite a cherished and loved venue with a really nice balanced programme. But remember the criticism the Millennium Dome had, and that was off the back of taxpayers' cash being put to a project like that. Certainly learned a lot being around West Ham and listening to stories of some of their players and some of those guys that are kind of imported into a club, a league, an environment that they don't have a big connection with, and how important it is to build that connection, and what Mark Noble means to those fans that a more recent signing may not, will never be able to connect in the same way. So no regrets. Really enjoyed my career so far. Feel blessed to work in sport, but very lucky to be back in Nottingham, and very lucky to be representing Trent Bridge. Well,
thanks for coming in. I know people can get their T20 Blast tickets next week. Is that right?
Yeah, Blast tickets on sale next week. the 100, something new for the city to try as well.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. But I there's something for everyone at Trent Bridge. If the 100's not for you, there's Test cricket. If Test cricket's not for you, there's the Blast. If cricket's not for you, there's a restaurant. So yeah, come and see us at Trent Bridge.
Cool. Thank you very much, Michael. Do leave us a 5-star review. We've had loads, which I'm really pleased about, and it does make a big difference to us. You can subscribe on YouTube and get this straight to you every week. And we've had plenty of subscribers. Next week, I'm not sure who'll be in the chair, but thanks to Michael for coming in. Sarah Clapson should be back. And thank you for listening or watching, and we'll see you soon. Goodbye. Thank you for listening to Garibaldi Red, a Nottingham Forest podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, then please let us know. We love hearing your feedback. We'll be back soon with another episode. Thanks for listening.